the way they're cutting the rosters and everything, you're almost going to have to pick your poison. You can't be a full balanced team. That's going to be over. You're going to have to be the sprint side with something or the distance side with something. And so, it's pretty obvious where we're going to go. But we also still want to have a balanced program because we have so much talent here in Houston.
Last couple.
For both Will and Carl, this program obviously has a long storied history of success. I'm curious, has the Big 12 changed anything for you guys? Is it shift anything, or is it just business as usual?
I mean, it's changed things, of course. I mean, it's a harder conference. It's tougher teams. We won the conference almost every year in the American and the Conference USA. So that's still a goal of ours. That's still what we're trying to teach our kids right now, that they can believe they can do that. But yeah, it's tougher by far. From the national level, nothing's pretty much changed.
Yeah.
But now you have to have higher quality athletes performing at a high rate. And we tell the kids all day long, right now, we have to walk into conference, we have to be perfect. We can't make mistakes. If we make mistakes, we're going to lose. So we're trying to be very, diligent and make sure the kids are prepared, they're fresh, they're talented, and just getting ready for next week.
Yeah. It's really difficult, especially coming from the American to this conference, because the American just didn't have many, especially on the men's side. They only had 7 teams and only 3 cared. 3 prepared, I should say. So you have this bloated roster of people getting 6th, 7th, 8th place. You have to have if you want to win, because Wichita State's going to get 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 8 events, and they win the meet. So and then all of a sudden you go to the Big 12, and we don't need 90% of them. So you have to change it. You have to change your program overnight and make it all about quality, and unfortunately get rid of the quantity. And then we said, okay, we're doing that, and then they said, okay, now roster limits, make it smaller. So it's a big challenge. So basically, outdoor we take 32 to conference, and we're going to be a roster around 40. So almost everyone's there. And nowadays the way the rosters are, if you can't score a conference after 2 years, you're gone. That's the way it is. You're moving to another conference where you can score. That's just the reality of where it is. And the kids talk about it, but to remind them, this is what you wanted. So you can't. Whatever you have one thing, there's always going to be a reaction. And then so they do it, oh, we got this, and then they want to react to the reaction. It's like, well, that's part of it. It's sad in a lot of cases, because there are a lot of great kids that work hard and do everything right, and you got to let them go. But that's just, one of the kids we talked to yesterday, explaining it to him, and he says, well, it's a business. And I said, well, that's what you wanted. Unfortunately, it is a business now in terms of the athletes. But I think in the long run, in terms of what we can do in the Big 12, everyone's kind of trying to figure it out, because everyone is going to have the same limits, everyone's going to have the same scholarships, everyone's going to, the scholarships are a little different, but we're going to see who's going to be able to figure out how to navigate the numbers and still win. Do you do it by just having super top heavy, or do you kind of have, not as many and more people in all events? I don't think everyone's figured that out yet.
Because think about it, we have kids on our team that are working really hard, and in the past, we've always had an elite group of kids that made nationals. We've always had kind of an A team that scored the conference championship. And then we always had a B team that we developed to the A team to get to the elite team. Unfortunately now, with this happening with the 45, we're not going to be able to have that success, And so bringing the roster down will help us overall in time, that's for sure. It's more time for each kid individually. It'll save a little bit of money as well. But at the same time, it's a tough decision to say, hey, kid, I know this kid right here can score in a year. We just had a little bit more time with him. Now that option is going to be gone out the window based on the 45. So. Yeah,
and so it just goes from, it goes from the salary cap, which was 12.6, to a different model. So that makes it a little less challenging in terms of the finances. But here again, it's navigating the roster, and that's the thing. I think once we get there, it'll be a little bit easier because the kids understand it. But here again, we're still not sure, so we're making cuts right now to get to that 45 or 40, whatever we want to be. And then they may come back and say, well, we're going to grandfather this year, then we're going to do next semester. So that's another thing. You don't know what you don't know. So I think we're moving full speed ahead, and we have the expectation to be a team that can win the conference, but our number one goal is always to win a national championship or be there at the top, because we can do that. Track is a unique sport in the sense that you could be 10th in your conference meet and win nationals. You know, have 6 people in 4 events and you win. So it's not really a national championship title. It's kind of a superstar title. But, you know, we definitely always have that objective. And I think that as this settles in, we'll be a lot better. I think in the future of track, it's the way the roster limits and the scholarships are. I think the bigger issue is going to be how teams are going to be populated. And I think they'll follow conferences. I definitely think certain conferences are going to have a lot more international and a lot less Americans. That's going to be very interesting. And I think a lot of them, like you mentioned, a general manager, well, a lot of coaches don't want to coach anymore. So you're going to see more people that are just changing the way they do finances. They're just going to recruit kids that are already good, they're already older, and just, you know, put them out there. That's one of my biggest pet peeves. This age thing. It's just absolutely ridiculous. We got kids that are freshmen that are 28, been to 2 Olympics. I mean, there needs to be there needs to be an age limit in our sport. It's just, you got a 27-year-old freshman and an 18-year-old freshman. That doesn't make any sense. So there are things that we're going to have to constantly adjust. But we're here because that's what the kids wanted. You know, that's what they ultimately wanted. But now, of course, they're starting to see some of the repercussions of their wants. But I will say this, we have to be honest about what's going on here. That the financial model is not sustainable. We can say all we want to, it's not sustainable. We all know that. If we continue to go down this route, there's going to be major disruptions and craziness in NCAA sports. It's just, if anyone thinks that they can continue to go this way, they're fooling themselves. We all know that. Because obviously there are certain schools that make money. The vast majority don't make money. And I think in the future, there are things that there's going to have to be a partnership with the public or with Congress, or some rules that are changed with schools that maybe we need to start thinking about student athletes and how our future economy works. And because the thing is that, you know, we have a world of AI coming. And so we're sitting here talking about college sports, and there's so much money, and we're trying to figure these things out. And in reality, the number one objective of these college athletes is to get here, to get a degree, to get a job. Ultimately, you know, we may have 3 people on our team of 115 that may run post-collegiate. That's probably the average. So think about that. You know, 2 or 2%. So 98% come here to ultimately get a job. And I think if we continue down this route, we're going to continue to rob Peter to pay Paul, and then everyone's going to be broke. So I think we need more transparency in the financial in the finances of NCAA sports. I think the public needs to understand more, and then understand how we can figure out a way to sustain the sports as a whole. And NCAA has always supported Olympic sports. I don't think that's possible in the future. So how do we manage football, which get what they get, basketball, get what they get? How do we manage the other Olympic sports with this model? And anyone that feels like it can work is not being honest with themselves. So I think that's something that has to be part of the conversation, not taking anything from them, but figuring out how we're going to make this whole thing work, because eventually we'll have no Olympic team.
Carl, if I could sneak this in, as someone who's invested his entire life into your sport, if they don't rope this in somehow or find something that works, what could you see as the future of collegiate track?
I think what's either, to be honest, I think that they need to go in different directions. We have to think of, because I never want to be in a space where I complain about what football gets and complain about basketball. I'm never that way. You know, that's their sport. They do their thing. I'm all for it. That's no problem. So let's take that off the table. But I think that we're going to, in the future, they're going to have to separate. Olympic sports are going to have to be in one category, and then let's figure out how we do that. And then football and basketball are in another category. That's where I think the future is. Or there will be no Olympic sports. I mean, that's just... And I say Olympic sports because I'm lumping them all in. Because the thing about it is, if you look at the Olympic Games, you know, we don't donate money to Olympic athletes. The NCAA has done that. They've done an admirable job. So I think that the future has to say, how do we make this work? And in a system that's not sustainable.